Hello, and welcome to the Ohio Department of Transportation's training on local LPA projects and the updated procedures on how to report on prompt payment, DBE goal attainment, commercially useful function, and prime contractor to subcontractor retainage. This training is a culmination of work from ODOT's Office of Local Programs, Office of Opportunity, Diversity, and Inclusion, or ODI, ODOT IT, ODOT District LPA Managers and Construction Monitors, and ODOT's Division of Construction Management, Office of Alternative Project Delivery. Today's presenters will be Chase Wells, myself, who will be acting as the construction liaison for the Office of Local Programs. We will also have Janet Treadway, ODOT's Asheware Project Business Administrator and Electronic Project Delivery Management Lead, and also Tia Williams-Hayes, our Mobile Technology Construction Specialist. Today's training is designed for both local public agencies and prime contractors. The training will be approximately 1 hour in length and will briefly discuss the history of ODOT's DBE program to help detail the purpose of why we're gathered today. We will discuss updates to the commercially useful function form to be completed by the LPAs, highlight the new prompt payment form be completed by the prime contractors, how Microsoft SharePoint plays a role in the department's goal of reporting timely and accurate data to FHWA, the procedures to get proper account registration, and lastly, answer any questions you may have. Speaking of questions, and the fact this training is virtual, your microphones will be muted for the duration of the training to block any unnecessary noise for both the audience and the presenters. Please utilize the question box located on your screen to add comments or ask questions throughout the training. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. On June 30th, 2015, the Federal Highway Administration, FHWA, and the Ohio Department of Transportation entered into a conciliation agreement to address compliance issues with the state's administration of the DBE program. The department has since fulfilled a majority of the requirements outlined in this agreement. However, there are still outstanding areas where the department has to improve reporting processes, and specifically on all federally funded local-led projects, which will have amplified focus on prompt payment, DBE goal attainment, commercially useful function, prime to sub retainage, and Form 1273 moving forward. This has been a major undertaking for the department, given the structure of ODOT's LPA program. On average, ODOT's LPA program per year has 175 unique local public agencies that sell almost 225 projects a year, valued at $350 million, or almost a quarter of ODOT's capital budget. So, why is prompt payment, DBE goal attainment, CUF, and prime to sub retainage tracking important? Let's get into it. With regard to prompt payment, there's the obvious ODOT CMS 107.21 language that reaffirms the Ohio Revised Code, which tells the prime contractor to make payment to each subcontractor and supplier within 10 calendar days after receipt of payment from the department, or perhaps the LPA. When it comes to prompt payment, I personally only hear a few cases per year, which leads me to believe we're doing fairly well across the state. But it's no longer what you know, it's what you can prove. Before now, we as the department did not have any mechanisms to track prompt payment in the LPA program. So the LPA program has been tasked with being able to instantly report on prime contractor to subcontractor prompt payment. This may come as a surprise, but the department has been unable to incorporate the DBE participation on LPA projects in the past because we didn't have real-time payment data for DBE subs. What I mean by that is we have never had a central database for our local public agencies to query project information from globally. For ODOT-led projects, we have Site Manager in combination with Civil Rights and Labor, so it's a much smaller hurdle. It's important to note that the Office of ODI has to report 2 times a year to FHWA through what is known as the Uniform Report. And in order to do so, we need real-time payments to DBEs and subs for the respective reporting periods. Furthermore, an approved commercial useful function has to be performed by the DBE in order for the prime contractor, LPA, and the department to receive credit toward the DBE goal in conjunction with reporting on prompt payment. Collectively, we have all went through the efforts of setting, tracking, and achieving DBE goals on our projects, along with submitting, reviewing, and approving utilization and affirmation plans. But we have not been able to count our efforts to FHWA because we did not have the proper systems in place for our LPA program. So what is the solution? ODOT has developed an electronic form through an application known as GoForms that will allow us to track prompt payment, DBE goal attainment, CUF, and the release of retainage from the prime to the subs. For locals, you will be required to complete the existing paper CUF form now in the GoForms application. For contractors, a brand new prompt payment form was developed that will also allow the LPA and ODOT to track DBE goal attainment and retainage via the GoForms application. This training will walk you through the process of how to navigate GoForms, complete the required forms, and how to register for the proper accounts with the department. And I want to make this point because I think it is important, and that is none of the contractual specifications have changed with regard to DBEs, prompt payment, CUF, and goal attainment. It's simply the procedures in which we capture the data and report such to FHWA. Lastly, the department will utilize Microsoft SharePoint as a central storage place where data can be utilized for reporting. Each LPA project will have a specific SharePoint website created by the respective ODOT district. And once a form is submitted in GoForms, it will automatically be routed to the respective LPA project specific site. LPA owners will be granted access to the SharePoint site by the ODOT districts to use as a place to share and retain project documents. Commercial useful function, a contractual responsibility for the execution of a distinct element of the work of a contract by a business enterprise and the carrying out of the contractual responsibilities by performing, managing, and supervising the work involved. As I said previously, both the prime contractor and the State Transportation Agency, STA, receive credit toward the DBE goal only when a DBE working on a contract performs a CUF. This language comes from the Code of Federal Regulations. And so moving forward, the responsibility will be for the LPA to complete the form in the GoForms application, and we can do that now. So as a local, I'm sure you're used to completing the commercial useful function or Appendix G in the LPA world via paper. But with paper, we're not able to capture the correct data that we need. So here, as you see on the screen, is the GoForms application. To log in, you'll simply move up to the right-hand top of the screen. You will put in your username and password that you receive from the department. So here's the home screen of the GoForms application. Whether you're a local public agency or a contractor, this is the view that you can expect to see upon logging in. In front of you, you see right away a list of forms. When you log in for the first time, of course, these forms won't be here. But once you become familiar with the application, your projects are up and running, you're completing forms, they will start to pile up here on the screen. The green arrows here simply mean that the form has been completed. If you look above and you don't see the green form, it simply means that the form's in draft status. But in order to navigate to the CUF form, simply scroll over to New, click on the LPA production folder, and you'll see 4 templates. The first one is the LPA field ODOT CUF form, and this will be the form that we use to complete the CUF. As I said previously, the CUF form itself has not changed. It's simply the mode in which we fill out the information. So to get started, much like Excel, simply click in the box. The PID as a project number, I'm sure we're all familiar with, but it's the project identification. For this example, I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Come over to districts, District 1, for example, prime contractor, ABC Prime, name of the DBE employee interviewed, John Smith, and the DBE company name. We'll go with something generic like DBE1. And so is the DBE performing as a prime contractor or a subcontractor? We'll select subcontractor. And then we'll go through the form and fill it out accordingly. Does the DBE supervisor form and direct and schedule all work activities, including material deliveries, without assistance from the prime or upper tier subcontractors? Yes. What company signs your check? What type of work is being performed? For this example, we'll go reinforcing steel. Have you observed any other contractors performing any of the DBE's work? No. Was all the equipment used by the DBE, owned by the DBE, or leased, rented from a company other than the prime or upper tier subcontractor? Yes. Or equipment used in the performance of the work without permanent marking or ownership documents verified? Yes. Is all equipment being operated by DBE employees and under the direct supervision of the DBE? Yes. As you can tell, this form is being completed as compliant. Number of DBEs working on site, we will say 4. DBE foreman's name. And employer. Does the DBE know where the EEO prevailing wage bulletin board is located? Yes. And to finish out the form, were material shipping documents addressed in the DBE to the DBE? Was the DBE on site to receive delivery of its materials? Yes. Did the DBE unload the materials received on site? Yes. As the LPA, you'll simply come down here. Once you get to the end of the form, you will select the date that the form was completed. Signature. A little difficult with the cursor. Based on the work observed and records reviewed, I observed that the DBE listed performed independently in accordance with the requirements of CFR. Yes. Within this CUF form, there's also the final reviewer signature. Perhaps, so the final reviewer signature is only to be completed when the LPA has a hired construction consultant that is completing the CUF form on behalf of the LPA. This field is to be left blank by the construction consultant. The LPA will be responsible to complete the form once it is uploaded into the LPA project-specific SharePoint site. This can be done through applications such as Adobe or Bluebeam. And there we have the form complete. Once done, you can simply go up here and click complete. But best practice would have been to always click save. This isn't like Microsoft Word or Excel where you can get automatic saves. For some reason, if your internet or if the power to your computer goes out and you haven't saved any information, unfortunately, all data inputted would be lost. So it's always a good idea to click the save button throughout. Once you're done with the form and you click complete, as I mentioned earlier, each project will have its own specific LPA SharePoint site. there's a API or an automated program interface that connects GoForms to SharePoint that runs every 5 minutes. So after clicking complete, what's going on in the background is the form is getting sent to the SharePoint site to be housed. And I'll show you that after a bit. So we just completed the traditional CUF form. And also, as you saw previously on that template, we have a new CUF form with regard to trucking that will be coming into effect in the near future. So we wanted to take this opportunity to complete it as well. So much the same process as the CUF form we just recently completed. You'll navigate over to the orange New button, click on the LPA production folder, and you will see the LPA CUF O.CUF form trucking. Again, we'll complete this form just as we did previously with the CUF, with the same project information. And upon completion, you will see again that this form will get routed to the LPA project specific SharePoint site. So we'll quickly go through this form. The project identifier as 1, 2, 3. Once we get done completing the PID, we'll move over to the district and put in District 1, the single digit, prime contractor, ABC prime, name of the DBE employee interviewed, Jack Smith, DBE company, DBE number 2. Is the DBE performing as a prime or a subcontractor? Is the driver a owner operator? Yes. How many trucks for this DBE trucking firm have been observed on site today? 4. If the driver is a non-owner operator, is the employee a W-2 or 1099 employee? If the driver is a 1099 employee, please contact the district contract compliance officer immediately. We'll say a W-2. Are the trucks hauling off-site or on? If hauling off-site, we can skip this question. If a company name is displayed on the truck, yes. Does the registration license plate number and the vehicle identification number match what is on the truck? Yes. Ask the driver how often they get paid. Say weekly. Ask the driver who is paying them for today's work. Go with the DBE contractor. Ask the driver who assigns the driver's daily duties. The owner. Ask the driver if they receive benefits. Yes. How are the benefits paid? Weekly. Types of benefit received: vacation, holiday, sick and leave, H&W, and let's say pension. Does the driver know where the EEO prevailing wage bulletin board is located? Yes. Now, as the person completing the CUF trucking form, simply put in your name based on the work that you observed, met the requirements of the CFR, signature, and whether the form was in compliance under review or not compliant. Once you've selected this, and you ensure that all material or information is complete, scroll back up to the top right-hand corner of the GoForms application and click Complete. Much like the form that we completed previously, there's an API in the background connecting GoForms and SharePoint, and within anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes, you can expect to see a PDF version of this form appear on the project-specific PID 123456 LPA SharePoint site. The next form to be completed in the GoForms application is prompt payment. Prompt payment is defined in the 2019 CMS ODOT spec book as making payment to each subcontractor and supplier within 10 calendar days after receipt of payment from the LPA for work performed or materials delivered or incorporated into the project, provided that the pay estimate prepared by the engineer includes work performed or materials delivered or incorporated into the public improvement by the subcontractor or supplier. Prompt payment form will also allow us to count for DBE goal attainment and retainage. And the responsible party to complete the prompt payment GoForms will be the prime contractor. So again, after logging into GoForms, this is the screen that you can expect to see. Much like we completed the CUF forms, the prompt payment form is exactly the same. So yes, the screen looks the same as the LPA. Of course, you'll be completing the CUFs. When you log in as a prime contractor, you'll see the same screen, but you will be looking for the prompt payment forms. You won't actually see the CUF forms in the template. So pretending I'm a prime contractor now, I've logged into GoForms. I see this home screen. Again, I scroll over to the new button to select a new form. Select the LPA production folder. And you will see either the LPA prompt payment or the LPA prompt payment 2. For now, we'll select the LPA prompt payment form, and we'll get into why the number 2 form exists here shortly. Again, much like Excel, you'll simply be clicking in the boxes to enter the proper information. So once the prompt payment form generates, you'll see a collection of cells that are highlighted in red. And the importance of these cells are to be completed so that once this form has been saved, completed by the prime contractor, in order for it to be routed to the proper LPA SharePoint site, the API actually needs to be able to identify the cells that are highlighted in red in order to route properly. So knowing that, we have to take special care to make sure that we enter in the correct information. We will continue to use the same project PID. Current contract amount. With this being our first prompt payment form, we will obviously then be using the original or the at-bid contract amount. For this example, we'll use 5.1 million. The final contract amount, this will be completed obviously once the final invoice has been processed. ODOT District 1. What is the project DBE goal? For this specific example, we will use 10%. And then it's important to know whether the prime is a DBE firm. And if so, we'll simply click the box. But for this example, we'll say that the prime is not a DBE firm. So the first thing in this prompt payment form that we'll be tracking is prompt payment. You'll come over here to invoice 1, and it says the date prime received payment from ODOT or local. And it says to enter the date for invoice 1 when submitting invoice 2, and I'll explain that here shortly. But what's important to note about this specific date is that it could be, or it could vary based on the type of payment set up by the LPA. And what I mean by that is the LPA can elect to pay the contractor through either what we call a reimbursement process or direct pay process. And depending as a prime contractor, what payment process you're under will dictate the date that you put in here for this first cell. Let's say it's a reimbursement type process. What that means is the local actually has the monies in hand to pay you directly for each invoice. So you as a prime contractor generate an invoice, you submit that to the local reviews it in conjunction with the LPA ODOT District Construction Monitor and approve that invoice. The local can then cut the check directly back to you, the prime contractor. Whenever that date occurs, that would be the expectation that you would put into this cell. However, this can vary if you as a prime contractor are in a direct pay type situation. And what I mean by that is you as a prime contractor generate the estimate. It then goes to the local approves the invoice. It gets sent to the ODOT District Construction Monitor. They approve it as well. And then from there, it comes to ODOT Central Office, Division of Finance. And from here, the Division of Finance then cuts the check directly to the prime contractor. But when they cut that check to the prime contractor, it's only 80%. It's the federal money, if you will. The local is still holding on to their 20% match portion. So you as a prime contractor receiving payments from the local, you're also receiving payments from ODOT that has the federal money. So you'll have two dates. What date do you select? And we've talked about this internally. And moving forward, the date or the expectation is for you to put the warrant date from which the department cuts you the federal money. So as a prime, and you're wondering what date I should select, you'll have the warrant date provided by the Ohio Department of Transportation, the Division of Finance, and that will be the expectation for the date that you put in here. So we wanted to make that clear. So let's move forward with the prompt payment. We'll select a date. And once that date's selected, the expectation is then that you pay all subsequent subcontractors, DBEs, and material suppliers within the 10 days. So here you need to note the last subcontractor, DBE, or material provider that received payment. Let's say that did occur within 10 days. And so let's say you completed that payment within 10 days. And from here, we'll start filling out the invoice information and how that information got divvied up between the prime contractor, the subcontractor, the DBEs, and the material suppliers. So invoice 1, let's just say the total was $400,000. You as a prime contractor will come down here to the next line, and it says amount the prime contractor per invoice. In this situation, let's say the prime contractor is owed exactly half, $200,000. From here, we'll start putting in the subcontractor and DBE information. Let's say sub number 1 was owed $40,000. Sub number 2 was owed $35,000. And sub number 3 was owed $50,000. You can see the number down here populating $325,000. That tells you that you have $75,000 remaining from the total of invoice 1, which we know is $400,000. Now we'll enter in the DBE contract information, and we will say DBE 1 is owed $20,000. The DBE number 2 is owed $20,000. And for DBE number 3, we will say $30,000, which means we have $5,000 left to reach the total of invoice number 1. So we will go down here, and actually we have a material supplier that is owed money. We will enter in this information as $5,000. So then at the end, we should see matching numbers. We see 400,000 here, and at the top, it matches our invoice number 1 total of $400,000. We also see the cells in red off here to the right, the total amount paid. So we're tracking invoices, the summation of invoices throughout the life of the project. We also see 200,000. That represents the total monies paid out to subcontractors, DBEs, and material suppliers. Now, you may also have a question regarding material credit, because we have designated here that material credit equals 60%. So I'm sure we have the question, why is the $5,000 not reportioned to 60% or $3,000? Please know that that actually is being accounted for in this column here under DBE goal percentage met to date. So we're still tracking the total dollars paid out to DBEs, but in this column, we're tracking the true DBE goal percentage with the 60% material credit accounted for. If you have any comments as a prime contractor, you can put them in here. And always a good idea to save and add a signature. So from here, you'll have all information for invoice 1 as a prime contractor completed that details all payments to subs, DBEs, and material suppliers. And from here, we'll fast forward to the expectation of capturing this data and getting it prepped and ready to complete this form again for invoice 2. So once you're done, click complete. And again, there's an API that's taking this information and routing it directly to the LPA SharePoint site in the background. So from here, let's fast forward a month and say it's time for invoice number 2. And so it comes time for invoice number 2. You as a prime contractor log in to GoForms, and you can expect to see this screen in front of you. Now, we know that we just completed the LPA prompt payment form, so we can open it here. And you can see that our information from invoice number 1 is still saved. Now it comes time to enter in the information for invoice number 2. And so we'll go over here to the top right-hand corner, click Form, and we'll scroll down to Reopen. And what Reopen does is take the information from invoice 1 or what you've saved and completed previously and open it back up in draft form. It will ask you if you want to reopen and change to draft. Select yes. And here we have the information all saved from invoice number 1, and we can begin the information for invoice number 2. Now, what's important here is if you notice on the screen, my login screen from GoForms there was a list of completed and in draft forms. And what's a good idea moving forward with your projects, because as a prime contractor and you start to acquire a bunch of different LPA projects, it can be hard to decipher which form is going to which project. And so from here, I recommend tagging your form. And it can be whatever suits you so that you know what form that you need to navigate to as the prime contractor. So for this specific project, I'm going to use the PID in order to tag the form 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And save changes. And so now I'll always know that this specific prompt payment GoForms is related to the PID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So again, always look as the prime contractor that the contract amount has changed. Chances are going from invoice 1 to invoice 2 that a change order has been executed. So we would expect perhaps this current contract value to fluctuate. And if it does, please update accordingly. Again, going down to invoice number 2, know whether you're getting paid via reimbursement or direct pay, which will help dictate what date goes in this field. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to your local public agency or your district construction monitor from ODOT. Complete the dates. We will say that the prime contractor did complete payment to all subcontractors, DBEs, and material suppliers within 10 days. And the invoice number 2 total is $600,000. As a prime contractor, your work equated to $300,000. Again, moving down, you'll fill out the information owed to the subcontractors for their work. Say subcontractor 1 is owed $70,000. Subcontractor number 2 is owed $40,000. Subcontractor number 3, we will say $30,000. And somewhere between invoice number 1 and invoice number 2, we brought in a 4th subcontractor who performed $100,000 worth of work. And so we can see the invoice total for number 2 is $600,000. Currently, we have accounted for $540,000. DBE number 1, say $20,000. DBE number 2, we will say $15,000. And again, for DBE number 3, we will say $15,000. And we will say that the material supplier was owed the remaining $10,000. That gets us back to $600,000, which was the original amount of invoice number 2. Again, you can see here the money that has been performed by the subcontractors, DBEs, and material suppliers. You can see the amount that the prime contractor has been paid to date through invoice number 2, which is a combination of $200,000 and $300,000. And currently, our DBE goal is at 2.6%, with a reminder that our goal originally was 10% of the contract. If you have any comments, you can put them here as the prime. Again, signature should be complete. And if this is the case, you can click. We should have clicked to save at some point just so we didn't lose information. But once finished, click complete. And so you heard me mention previously that there was prompt payment 1 form that we've been selecting to fill out these invoice numbers. But what happens when an LPA project goes beyond 10 invoices? Then we have to start accounting for more information. And so we developed the prompt payment 2 form, which will help then carry us from invoice 11 to invoice 20. And so to save you time filling out information for invoice 3 through 10, I'll show you what 1 looks like that's been completed. So here again, you can see that the tag that we put on our last prompt payment form as a prime contractor shows up here. Perhaps we have a long list of projects that we've been working on and we're looking for a particular project and information. One of the nice things about the tags is you can filter on them, and you can simply scroll over here to this filter button, click it, and start searching for some of the tags. Obviously, our PID is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so we can click this tag, which will then show us all the forms that have been completed for that specific project, which obviously the ones that we've completed just previously. So keep that in mind. If you're ever looking for a specific project, perhaps this filter function can help you find the form. Okay, so from here, I would like to show you a completed invoice 1 through 10 prompt payment as a prime contractor. So from here, you can see invoices have been filled out monthly from September 2020 all the way through June of 2021. If you recall, our initial contract amount was $5.1 million. Throughout the life of these past 10 months, it's fluctuated up $300,000 to $5.4 million in this example. But some things I also want to draw your attention to is I've mentioned retainage previously. One of the things that this prompt payment form does is allows the local and the department to track retainage held on subcontractors and DBEs. But before going into retainage, it's important to note that we also have this column here, which states that if the contractor is a DBE firm not being used in the DBE goal attainment, please mark such. And by doing that, there's enough logic built into GoForms to properly account for the DBE goal based on the status of subcontractor number 6. Moving to retainage, this is something that's important for not only the local, but for the Department of Federal Highway to track on our federally aided projects. So at any point through invoice 1 through 10, if retainage is withheld, that needs to be captured here. So let's say in this specific project, somewhere between invoice 1 and 10, you as a prime held $10,000 from subcontractor number 6. And then with every subsequent invoice, update when that retainage is released. And as we look back through invoice 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, on to 10, we can identify at increments when the subcontractor was paid back for their work. And obviously, once you get to the end of the project, all that retainage should be released. Same was actually done in this example for DBE number 1, where retainage was withheld, and by invoice number 10, the retainage was completely released. We also see that the DBE goal currently stands at 9.9%, or I'm sorry, the DBE of the project stands at percentage stands at 9.9% with a goal of 10%. So we'll see moving into invoice 11, if that changes with our example. So we have this information all housed within prompt payment number 1. Now let's move to prompt payment number 2. So upon logging in as a prime contractor, you would expect to see a screen such like this. In order to pull up prompt payment number 2, again, scroll over to the new form or the new button, select LPA production, and then move over here to LPA prompt payment 2. From here, you will see a lot of resemblance with prompt payment number 1. You will again have to complete the prime contractor ODOT PID, the district, the DBE goal amount, in order to set the information up properly from invoice 11 to invoice 19. So prime contractor, ABC, prime, the PID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The current contract stands at $5.4 million. ODOT District 1, the DBE goal, 10%. We can say that we are on page 2 of 2. Again, as I reiterated, it's important to note here, whether you're in a direct pay or reimbursement type situation. So we need to grab the last date of invoice number 10, which we had marked as June 11th. We will say that the prime contractor paid by June 18th. And then here we're just grabbing the information that we had pulled up from invoice number 1 that we can see from a previously open tab. I'll go ahead and complete that information for you. The invoice 1 through 10 was at 5.1 million. The prime contractor to date has been paid 3.33 million. Here we have a bunch of subcontractors. Their information will have to be put in. It will take a little time up front, but like last prompt payment, this information will carry forward from invoice 11 through invoice 19 once completed. So sub number 1 completed 315,000 through invoice number 10. Sub number 2 completed 209,000. Sub number 3 completed $221,000. Sub number 4 completed $241,000. Sub number 5 in the example completed $179,000. Lastly, sub number 6 completed $25,000, which we had marked as a DBE firm not being used in the DBE goal attainment. There was retainage held by the prime, and retainage had been completely released. We'll go down here for the DBEs. $145,000. DBE number 2, $147,000. DBE number 3 was $133,000, and DBE number 4 was $40,000. And in the previous example, we had 2 material suppliers at $73,000, and material supplier number 2 at $42,000. We should have totals that match up to 5.1 million. So summing up all the totals here between the prime, sub, DBEs, material suppliers, 5.1, which again matches the invoice total. So that means we have properly accounted for all the information. We did have DBE number 1 that had retainage withheld at 10,000. So we need to make sure that we captured that information. So from here, we've laid the foundation to move forward from invoice 11 to invoice 19. So let's quickly run through invoice number 11, which actually is going to be our final invoice in this example. And we will say this invoice took place in July 2021. And as a prime, in conjunction with the local, we know that this is going to be the final invoice for the project. It stands at $300,000. Again, much like prompt payment 1, we'll go through this process. The prime is owed $150,000. Our various subs are owed their money. $10,000. Say sub number 3 is owed $10,000, and we'll say sub number 5 is owed $15,000. On down to the DBEs. We will say DBE is $20,000. DBE number 2 is $30,000. DBE number 3 is $10,000. And DBE number 4 is $10,000. Last but not least, the material suppliers. No material suppliers on the final invoice, which means the $300,000 matches the final invoice. We have $5.4 million total paid between invoices 1 through 11 that which matches our current contract amount. So we can expect then to go up here and put in the final contract amount. Our DB goal is 10%. Check it down here at the bottom. For this particular example, we reached 11.2. All subcontractor DBE and material information is accounted for. Retainage is accounted for, and we should be good to go. Comments, add signature. And we should be good to go. Click complete. Again, this information is being sent to a LPA specific SharePoint site. That information will be able to be hit by the department, and we can capture that data and report it to Federal Highways for their uniform report, which we are required to report on twice a year. So with that, we can close out of our prompt payment tabs, take us back to the GoForms home screen. And from here, we will be able to check on our progress as far as the original CUF form that we completed, the trucking CUF form that we completed, the prompt payment and prompt payment 2 forms in the SharePoint site. So as I mentioned, the information that we just completed in GoForms has been sent to the SharePoint site designed for our specific LPA project. So what is SharePoint? It's a secure website that stores, organizes, shares, and allows for information access from any device. The CUF and prompt payment forms completed in the GoForms application will automatically get routed to the LPA project, specific SharePoint site. The Office of Local Programs and Office of Opportunity, Diversity, and Inclusion will be able to extract the form data from SharePoint site, which is the whole reason that we have this connection between GoForms and SharePoint site, or SharePoint. The responsible party will be the ODOT LPA districts in the LPA. The ODOT LPA district will be responsible for creating the SharePoint site. We've had previous trainings with them. We have user guides. So each district will be equipped to create SharePoint sites for each of their local LEP projects. And from there, they will permit the local public agency access into the SharePoint site so that they can, as I said, share and store information between the two organizations. So let's take a look at the SharePoint site. Here's the home screen of the LPA construction SharePoint sites. You can see across the top ribbon here, our districts 1 through 12. For the example that we run through, we were using District 1. So we can simply click on that district. And from here, you will see the District 1 LPA construction homepage. You'll see a couple PIDs down here. Our specific project was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so we can click on it to see that specific information. And from here, it takes you to a home page. You can have some general project information. So here, we said the ODOT Planning Project Manager was Tia Williams-Hayes. The Environmental Project Manager was Janet. The ODOT Construction Project Manager was myself. Of course, we remember the 10% goal. Ignore the District 13, but the prime contractor, the construction amount, and so forth. All that information can be edited and stored here. But specific to GoForms information, we would navigate to the ODI compliance page. And from here, you'll see various folders, but the important one based on our work today was the commercial useful function. If you recall, both forms were deemed compliant, And so we can click on here and we can see that yes, both forms were actually uploaded automatically to the site. And so we can view our work in PDF form. We can see the original CUF, and then that will be obviously viewable by the district, but it's also going to be viewable by local programs, the Office of Opportunity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And this information will be extracted and put into the uniform report to Federal Highways. You can see it's date stamped. This one was completed about an hour ago. Our trucking form was completed 49 minutes ago. And then of course, we also want to see our prompt payment, which has its own folder, ODI compliance, prompt payment folder. And we can see the various prompt payments that we completed. Let's look on number 2, which has all the final detail information to make sure that it's there. So from here, we can see the recently prompt payment 2 form that we completed that has all the project information, the ABC Prime as the contractor, the current contract, the final contract amount, all the invoicing details and so forth. So it's nice to have that information obviously as a local, but it's also beneficial for the department to have that back in central office with regard to local programs and the Office of Opportunity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and being able to grab that information and report properly and timely to Federal Highways. Another thing I want to draw attention to that's important, that may not seem important in the beginning, was those cells that were highlighted in red. And I talked about the API, or that program interface that connects GoForms and SharePoint. That link is made through this process where it identifies specific attributes on that form. And you can see here that the naming convention is today's date, the date that the form was completed, the name of the form, and also the person who completed the form. And that information needs to be correct in order for these files to be housed properly. If for some reason there's an error in one of these fields when you're completing the information in GoForms, TIA or someone back in central office will actually get an error notifying them of such that wrong data was inputted and that there was nowhere for that particular form to go within SharePoint. Also, to go back to the CUF form, you'll notice that upon clicking on it, you see a compliant folder. Had we selected non-compliant or under review, the system is smart enough to actually create those folders and then file the information in them accordingly. For both examples, the CUF and the trucking, we marked as compliant. And so the system automatically created a compliant folder and then housed the information in it accordingly. So it's important to note, again, you can see the naming convention, today's date, the time, the name of the CUF form, trucking award, contractors, and the name of the person. And so completing that information, paying attention to detail will help us as a department be able to capture that information. Another important note between the LPAs and the construction staffs are all these folders over here that you'll see on the left. This is not a mandate to LPAs to use these particular folders, but I think it can be beneficial as some districts within the department have already begun using this, and some have been using for quite some time. But for example, under the construction folder within SharePoint, we can start housing project data such as change order information, correspondence, whether these are RFIs or emails or whatnot, the daily work reports that are being completed, whether by the local or their construction consultant, any disputes, claims on the projects, field reviews. Once you get to finalization and following the LPA manual procedures construction chapter, there's a list of forms that need to be housed within the finalization folder. Meetings, the ever important project, bill of materials, schedules, reference items, and so forth. So there's a good platform here between the LPA and the ODOT construction monitor to share information back and forth. That can save some time and keep everything in one central location. There's also a consultant services folder, environmental, finance invoices. Of course, the ODI compliance folders that we were just on. Right away, utilities, project admin, just a various list of folders that can house and share information between the LPA and the construction monitor. So, as I said, this information will not be mandated, but could provide a benefit to you as an owner. And from here, you're probably wondering, as a prime contractor and a local, how do I get access to SharePoint? How do I get access to GoForms? And with that, I'll turn it over to Tia Williams-Hayes.
Thank you, Taze. Hello, everyone. My name is Tia Williams-Hayes. I will cover how a prime contractor and local public agency can request a My ODOT and GoForms account. For prime contractors, upon the need to have access to GoForms, the first step for them is to identify if they currently have a My ODOT account. If so, the user can supply the email address associated with their My ODOT account in an email format. That email can be sent to the GoForms help group at goforms.help@dot.ohio.gov. If the user does not currently have a My ODOT account, they can reach out to the district construction monitor to obtain a user guide outlining how to create a personal My ODOT account. After their My ODOT account has been created, the user will then need to submit their request in an email format that includes that email address associated with their My ODOT account to the GoForms help group. Once the GoForms account has been created, all credentials and instructions on how to access and navigate through the GoForms system will be sent to them. For local public agencies, or who are better known as LPAs, their requests will be slightly different. As a part of their access to GoForms, I will cover how they will obtain access to the district's LPA SharePoint site. Upon the need for access to GoForms for an LPA, the first step is to identify if that particular user currently has a My ODOT account. If so, that user can supply the email address associated with their My ODOT account in an email format, and that email can be sent to the GoForms help group at goforms.help@dot.ohio.gov. If the user does not currently have a My ODOT account, they can reach out to the district construction monitor to obtain a user guide outlining how to create a personal My ODOT account. After their My ODOT account has been created, the user will then submit the email address associated with that My ODOT account in an email format to the GoForms help group. Once their GoForms account has been created, all credentials and instructions on how to navigate through the GoForms system will be sent to them. The next step for LPAs would be for them to send their email that is associated with their My ODOT account and the PID for the project that they are working on to the district construction monitor. From there, the district construction monitor will then grant them access to the specific LPA project SharePoint site.
Thank you, Tia. And now, as we approach the conclusion of today's training, we covered the brief history of ODOT's DBE program. We hit the purpose for this training, how to complete a CUF form from the perspective of a LPA, how to complete the prompt payment form from the perspective of the prime contractor in GoForms, what a SharePoint site looks like and how that information can be shared between the local and the department, how to register for the GoForms and My ODOT account. And so I want to leave you with just a couple pieces of information. So I'm sure you're wondering, when does all this go live? We've talked internally between local programs, construction, ODI, and we've arrived on the date of October 1st, which means any local project advertised after October 1st will fall under the requirements of using GoForms and SharePoint. It should be noted that GoForms is a free application to the LPA and to the prime contractors. There's no fee associated with having or logging in to these applications. All LPA projects will have a specific SharePoint site, as previously noted. And last, the training video and user guides will be made available and posted to both the Office of Local Programs website and the Division of Construction Management's LPA website. So that, thank you for your time today and good luck in the field.
Thank you, Chase. This concludes the prompt payment, DBE goal attainment, commercially useful function, CUF, and retainage training. You will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording and also a link to the PowerPoint slides used during this training. Thank you and take care.